I think it humanizes her for like a lot of people, including myself, think of her as kind of like a superhuman who is just so incredibly talented at soccer. And when you have an injury like she did, and when she went through all these things and she's, explaining it, it's really like kind of humbling at the same time as well.
Welcome to Red Stars Report, a podcast dedicated to bringing the latest news and commentary on the NWSL Chicago Red Stars. I'm your host, LT.
And I'm your co-host, Grant.
We're back after taking a week off, certainly a week to take off that didn't have a whole lot of news, but big news, big stories that we'll have to cover today. We could start right off with the fact that the club has a GM,
What?
biggest news of the week. New GM,
We're allowed to
Richard.
do that?
Allowed to do what? Have a GM? We can have a GM.
Okay.
Richard Fez, or Fuse. I don't know how to pronounce it yet. I haven't heard it yet.
French guy.
I will look it up. He'll be the general manager of the club, and we'll usher in the new era of the Chicago Red Stars. He comes from Switzerland's Servette Football Club, where he was the CEO for the last few seasons and was the president and sporting director of their women's side since 2017. During his time with the club, he brought them to the top of the Swiss League's table several years in a row, even had them qualify for the UEFA Women's Champions League 3 years in a row. I won't read off like the numbers, but on the business side of stuff, running their business operations, he increased their revenue in merchandising, their commercial avenues, increased the club's digital engagement levels, like doubled, tripled, quadrupled, like everything. It's just big numbers. He seems like a really extremely experienced leader who can bring a lot to the Red Stars. I'm curious what going from the business side of stuff to constructing a roster and everything will look like for him. I'm sure he had a lot of hands-on stuff when it came to being like the sporting director for the women's side in Switzerland, but we'll see kind of what he can do here. I'm just really excited to see what he can bring to the table. We know that Babette Peters has been kind of running the show as assistant GM since early last year. So now he'll step in and we'll kind of see what changes, how much he's involved, how much power he'll still give to Babette in her decision making. Hopefully, he's a great team leader for them, and we'll see what kind of moves he makes and what kind of roster he can construct.
I think this was kind of like a great way to end our off season. Like I know that preseason was kind of already started by then, but it's just there's been so much great news and great things that have been happening. And with preseason starting now, like there's just so much more to look forward to, especially now that we can officially say that we have a GM and everything is basically finished except for the final decisions on the roster.
Yeah, it completes the senior staff for the club. Like people had very little faith that the club would go from no owner, no GM, no president, no coach, whatever, starting the season without most of those. Obviously, we've made jokes about the lack of a GM, but never did I think that they would just remain without one. now every single one of those spots is filled with high quality talent, high quality leaders. And we're still over a month away from the season starting. So it's kind of all coming together. And I think you're exactly right. The kind of ending the off season with this higher, it's nice to just watch like everything solidify, and you can look at the club and see like that's a full club. Um, every position is filled in the bigger roles, I should say. Like I'm sure there's still things down the pyramid that will get filled as the season goes on, but having that GM there now to sort of lead the soccer operations side of stuff, I'm just really excited to see the future now. I just want to see we don't have to sit here and worry about who's, gonna be the next this, the next that. We have everything, and now we can just let it all play out.
I think it also is kind of like semi-closure to the past, like the
Yeah.
past Red Stars, like the Rory Dames and Arnim Whistler era.
Hmm.
Especially I guess with if I jump to our next topic of Rade leaving, like majority of front office people or like big name front office people are gone,
Yeah.
and the coaching staff is gone. And so now we're in the Laura Ricketts era, with high quality individuals leading the way. Um, so I think that's also another thing that should be mentioned too.
Yeah, and now it's also nice to see them get away from the head coaches, the GM situation.
Yeah,
Like I know that Lauren brings a lot of experience, and I'm sure um, there will be a lot of aspects where he makes decisions, but even in some interviews that he's already done, he's been like, he was like, I just let Babette handle that stuff. He's like, I'm just here to coach. And that's nice to see because I've never liked in any sport the GM is the head coach situation. I've never liked that. That's very evident in the Chicago space right now with
you're
the
telling
Chicago
me.
Sky. Yeah, everything that kind of has been blowing up in that world because of that situation. I'm just glad that we're away from that with the Red Stars. Someone to construct and build the roster, build the team, and hire down for people, and then someone to just coach and a team to just coach and make this team go back to the championship level that we expect them to be here in a few years,
Maybe less.
maybe less. We'll find out.
We'll
We haven't
find
really,
out.
we haven't seen the product on the field yet, so
Nope.
we'll eventually see that. But as you mentioned just a little bit or earlier, the departure of Rade was like what like you said, the last kind of remaining member of that era, even though he was in the tail end of that era. um he departs after 5 years with the club. He started in 2019. um he informed the club prior to the draft that he was going to depart once the club staff, the new staff had transitioned into preseason, which I think was incredibly kind of him to do that instead of just saying, I'm out, just and being gone. He was like, I'm gonna leave for my family, and I will stay until everybody's settled with the new staff. And he's played a pivotal role in Alyssa Nair's development, both at the club level and at the national level as an assistant coach with the U.S. women's national team since 2019, which was essentially like national team wise, like the rise of Alyssa Nair winning her, the World Cup and everything. So losing him was unexpected, and it should be interesting to see kind of how that affects the dynamics in Alyssa's career. And we'll talk about the new hire in a second. But what are some of your thoughts on Rade leaving?
I mean, I think that with Alyssa Nair, you know, having him by her side for that long really helped her. But also, I think change could be a good thing. Um, and I feel like since we are getting close to the end of her career, like I don't think it could be that big of a deal. And we don't really know how much longer she's gonna play. So I think change could be interesting. I mean, change is probably the main descriptor of the Red Stars anyway, regardless.
That's true.
Um, but it could be interesting to see maybe like new things that she'll learn from the new GK coach and other GKs around her. But I mean, if since he is moving away to be closer with his family, like that's good for him. Um, I'm just I'm not too worried, I guess is my main point.
Yeah, I am really interested to see what a new coach can do for Alyssa in her career. Like sometimes change can make a difference one way or another in a player. Hopefully, the new coach can help Alyssa improve her game even this late in her career, but also kind of start the development of the young players like Mackenzie Wood and the club's new signing, Sydney Schneider. But we can talk about the new hire. His name's Brenton Saylor. Um, he comes in after Rade, like almost immediately. Like they had obviously because Rade gave them the time to hire a coach while he was still there. The gap between him leaving and the new coach coming in was very short. He comes to the Red Stars with a lot of experience as the keepers coach for the U.S. youth national team. He was the goalkeeper coach for the Houston Dash from 2018 to 2022, a period where he coached Jane Campbell during her time when she was getting call ups to the U.S. women's national team. Even she just got another one here in this latest camp. So that's really nice to see. Like Jane just won goalkeeper of the year in the NWSL last season, so anyone who's coached her must be good, right? Um, so I'm just interested both to see what he can do for Alyssa in her career, but I hope his main focus this year obviously is Alyssa, but I hope he's really giving a lot of attention to Mackenzie Wood and Sydney Schneider because I think those two I think those two are what the club sees as their future. We don't necessarily know exactly what's going to happen after Alyssa leaves, but if you can focus on those two now and develop them now with a new coach who can bring a new style, a new leadership, new tactics, whatever, it'll be good to see.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And speaking of those keepers specifically, we discussed in the past when Mackenzie Wood may be coming back from her loan in France, and now she's back. That happened. So it's nice to see her back in training. Hopefully, she can develop more under Alyssa. We'll kind of see who the number two is, who the number three is between her and Sydney Schneider. I'm just really excited to have Mackenzie back. The one kind of experience that we got to see with her in that Mexico game last season, I think showed a lot of her talent. She I think played in 2 games over in France, and I think she maybe gave up 1 goal and then lost in a PKs in another game, but she had a shutout and so she's a promising young talent, and we'll kind of see where her future goes, but it's nice to kind of have a full keeper roster now because it was kind of looking a little worrisome there when it was just Alyssa.
Yeah. I think also now that we have a solid GK union, I would say probably one of the top ones in the league, just because of World Cup experience alone. I think sets us apart from other ones. Schneider is phenomenal. I don't think I have another word to describe her other than phenomenal. Especially that, that she's been coached by Lauren before, really helps with that too. Let's get more Jamaicans on the Red Stars in the future. I'm not gonna say Bunny Shaw because I know I'm gonna upset the City fans, but someone else, I guess.
Yeah, I was watching some of City Schneider's highlights when I covered this a couple weeks ago, and I was just like kind of blown away by her effort in just attacking attackers. Like the way she just like comes out of the box or gets off of her goal line to just run at people and dive at them and get the ball. I was like, this is a player that takes a lot of risks, and I like it. I like it a lot. It's fun to watch.
Determined, a
Yeah,
very determined player.
and like you said, just the amount of experience that Alyssa has, both at the domestic level and the national team level, and then Sydney Schneider getting several appearances at World Cup level uh, is really good for the Red Stars. Not every club can have that. A player who has won multiple World Cups and a player who has been to a World Cup and has been captain a World Cup. So, like you said, our goalkeeper union is looking strong. Um, just a couple of weeks after we were very worried about it.
We were worried about a lot of things,
We were
and
worried
now
about a
we're
lot of
like,
things. I had
we can
faith, but
just
I was
sit back,
worried.
relax.
I had faith that Mackenzie would come back and I would be less worried, but
Yeah,
I didn't expect them to sign Schneider. So my hopefulness for a little bit of solidity became even more so completely solidified now that they have all three of them in place.
it's like, what are we gonna talk about now that everything is just set in stone? It's like they don't want us to talk about anything, LT.
Well, eventually we're gonna have to talk about the roster going from 38 people to 26, but
So many people.
yeah, it's a huge roster right now. It's a big roster. And
Yeah.
another player that just joined that club in training camp is Amber Brooks, former Washington Spirit and Houston Dash defender. Cheryl, our eagle-eyed community member, spotted her in a video that the club had posted on socials. She was just like leaning up against the goalpost in the background. And Brooks confirmed that she was there by her own post on Instagram. And then I pushed that. I got that out there just to make sure people knew that she was in camp. And then Joe Chats of On Tap Sports helped us confirm that she's coming in as a non-roster invitee to camp, not a signed contract player. So, what do you think about the club adding Brooks to the roster, or not the roster, but the training camp roster?
I think it's interesting, but also I feel like if they do end up signing her, that it would be a very nice addition to our back line. Maybe not for, all the yellow cards and whatnot. I hope she can not flip off people this season. I think that would be nice. I know they were supposed to do the sin bin for next year or this year, the blue cards, and that's not happening anymore. So I feel like she would get a lot of those.
Probably.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
The blue
I
cards.
saw
Yeah.
those reports that they're gonna start with the lower
FA Cup.
levels. Yeah, lower leagues, not the top flights. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But she would get that.
she's an experienced veteran. She's been in the league for many years. Like Grant said, too many incidents, I guess. I don't think she's like, the greatest defender in the world. She's a good defender, especially was early in her career. I'm glad that she's an NRI, a non-roster invitee, and not just a rostered player because I really do need her to earn that spot on the roster. I don't want a player who can just come in and just fill that last roster spot. Like there are 25 players on this roster right now, and there's a maximum of 26. So there's one spot left minus players getting cut or released
Yeah.
from their contracts. So I think it would be very worrisome to a lot of players who are there at camp and don't have contracts if just another veteran came in, signed a contract, roster's full, then they'd be like, I really need to outplay, really truly need to outplay every single one of these non-contracted players and the contracted players to be able to make this roster. And maybe that would have been a good thing, but I'm sure that there's the possibility of some of these defenders that we have in camp could be better for the team than Brooks. I don't know a whole lot about Brooks. I watched some of her highlights from her career. I've looked at some of her statistics. And I think just her general play this late in her career maybe would be good for the bench if we need to feel or fill the bench later down the line. But I'm glad that she's not under contract, but I hope that she can play well enough to earn a contract because I do think that she's a good player and an experienced veteran. And we've talked at length about the value that veterans can bring to this club, and we've seemed to add veterans in the front, in the middle, and just maybe one in the back. So maybe another one would be a good addition too. But I have a lot of excitement for a lot of the really young players that are in that camp, and I hope that they have the same. I hoped that they had the same level of opportunity to make the roster that Brooks did, and so her being a non-roster invitee, I think was a smart choice by the club.
Yeah, I thought it was smart too. Also, I just with it being, the 25 roster players that we have now and that one spot being left, I feel like I want to compare, but also at the same time, it's like I feel like it's really early to compare between like draftees and non-roster invitees. I wish we had access to see like these preseason scrimmages or games that are going on to really like get a inside look at how well these players are performing. I don't know the exact date of when they have to slim the rosters down. Do you know?
I think it's February 26th.
Okay.
It goes down to 32 players.
Yeah, 32.
So
I uh I really want to see Hannah Anderson make this roster, but I don't know if it's going to be at the expense of like someone like Amber Brooks or like the opposite happens. Like it's
mm.
too close to call as the political reports always do for elections. That's how I feel right now.
Yeah, you can look at this roster of 38 players and you can look at what players who have been on this club for a long time or the last few years have done in their careers And then you can look at the players who haven't seen a whole lot of minutes, but kind of based on the minutes that they've gotten, what they can do. Then you got to look at the draftees. And the only thing that we've seen and know about the draftees is their play in college. And then the NRIs are a mix of both because they're both college players and athletes who have been playing professionally for several years. So you like the way that we are not there in camp, and we can't just sit here and pick 26 players off the top of our heads um, based on their talent in this moment. We only have the past to look at. And that's why I'm not going to like publicly just be like, here's 26 players who I think are going to make this roster, because I honestly have no idea how well certain players could be performing. Like Hannah Anderson could be the best center back in camp right now. She could be out, like we have no idea. Like she could be impressing the coaches more than the other center backs are. The like people on the forward line who we expect to play on the forward line could be getting outperformed by players who we haven't even really thought of even making the roster. So the fact that we can't see these things, we're not there at camp, we're not watching these scrimmages. The only people that know who's going to make this roster are the coaches and the GMs. And I we can just sit here and talk about how much we like certain players based on what we've seen in the past, and that's what I'm gonna do. Like I like what Hannah Anderson did in college, and I hope she makes the roster. I like just certain players that are currently on the team and currently under contract who I also may hope make the roster and aren't part of those cuts that may happen, will happen. We just don't know. And we'll find out, you know? We'll find out eventually. Whenever those deadlines hit, we'll find out. And then we'll have opinions on it.
Opinions later. Not now.
Yeah. Once we see the cuts, then we can talk about the cuts.
We'll spend 2 hours doing in-depth. Never mind. I'm making a joke.
Go ahead, finish your joke.
No, I'm just gonna make fun of. We'll spend like the whole day talking about why this person was cut and why
We will
this
do a
person was
24-hour
staying.
live stream about why each 6 of those players were cut on February 26th.
Follow our Twitch channel, Red Stars Report.
But just like in general, just preseason in general, like how are you feeling about it, like overall, just from what we've seen?
I like the content. Content's great. I like that. I really like how the Red Stars social has changed. And this is not a knock at my friend because my friend used to be in charge of the Red Stars and then he moved to a different team. There's just so much more that we see now, I feel like, compared to past years. And I don't know if that's because he was limited in that. Um and now, like with the new ownership, whatever, you just get to see so much more, and there's so much more interaction, and all that. But content's been great. Love that you kind of get an inside look a little bit, not too much. Um, I I feel like it's going great for the coaches being able to see all this talent and trying to figure out who the hell is gonna make this roster. But I'm excited to learn more from the preseason games. I think most of those are closed.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
I guess updates on social channels will be helpful to see, who starts in goal or, you know, how many goals we're going to get in a game for freaking who knows. I don't remember our preseason schedule off the top of our head. They're playing
I
the
don't think they've released one.
I think
We've seen
they're
other
playing
teams.
Racing Louisville at Purdue.
Yeah, we've seen other teams release
Iowa?
certain
They're playing
schedules. They're
Iowa
playing Iowa. Yep,
in
they're
Iowa?
playing. They're playing. I think they're as the time that we're recording this. I believe they're playing North Carolina in a scrimmage. I don't think that's necessarily a
In Florida?
yeah in Florida. And then yeah, Iowa and Racing Louisville, I think, are the only ones that we've also seen from there. Like we from the Red Stars, we've gotten nothing. They haven't actually announced any of the
Hurry up, Red
scrimmage. The
Stars.
scrimmage against Gotham was a surprise. I did not. I don't remember reading about that. So yeah, I also have been enjoying the content. I really have been enjoying the content. The social content has been just really fun. I think that it looks like the players are just having a blast. They're happy, excited to be with each other, playing soccer again. I hate that, the 2 seconds that we get of them actually playing soccer each day. It's just not enough. I just want the season to start so I can watch these players play soccer. Um, One of the videos that we saw, well, I guess the only video that they released of the scrimmage versus Gotham had Tatum playing on the left side of the defense, which is where I've been wanting her to go back to for a long time now. So hopefully that sticks. I didn't think she was fit for the right side of the defense last season. She had a stellar 2022 season on the left. And the fact that she could be back on the left, at least just in this scrimmage and hopefully in the future, like I like to see that kind of stuff. Jenna Bike has also been in like a lot of the highlight reel plays on social media. And so that'll be a really interesting story to follow. Like I'm a big Jenna Bike fan. I think she should have gotten a lot more minutes last season than she actually did. And the fact that the social team just keeps pushing the great plays that she's been making in training, I think that'll be very interesting to just keep a close eye on to see what she's up to.
Need the story on the black eye.
Oh yeah, doing this story on the black eye, that would be interesting too. And the
Yeah.
story on B. Franklin getting eye patched up as well.
That too.
Need that story as well. And you just need to know what the hell they're doing in these camps, going at each other's eyes.
Go to Red Stars boot camp.
It's funny. Yeah, I've really been enjoying this preseason. I just think the energy is contagious, and it seems to be getting a lot of people really excited.
Good vibes all around.
It's true. So the other thing that we can talk about, kind of outside of camp, but still Red Stars related, is that international play is about to ramp back up here soon with the W Gold Cup. And several Red Stars have been called into their national teams to represent them in the tournament. And it seems as though Grant and I are still kind of working on our flags idea uh,
I'll get him
in the background.
eventually.
I love that idea, and it's exciting to have a lot of players representing so many different countries around the world on this club. And first, we can just start with the U.S. Listenaire, my hero, she's back again with the U.S. after a stellar World Cup for her that ended in tragedy. Um, I'm just excited to see Alyssa back in goal for the U.S. 2023 was a great year for her, not giving up a whole lot of goals in general on the national team side of stuff. I hope this youth movement that is kind of being seen in the U.S. system doesn't lead to her losing her starting spot, because I think she just has more to prove. And I think even this late in her career, she can just keep getting better. I have no doubt of that. The U.S. is also calling in Mallory Swanson into camp. even though she won't be on the official roster, this will be Mal's first camp since she sustained that awful uh, patellar injury last season that caused her to miss most of the NWSL season and the World Cup. So it'll be nice to see her back in camp, at least wearing the crest. And I'm glad that she isn't playing in the tournament because I selfishly want her first appearance to be with Chicago.
They got to get her ready for the Olympics, though. Start prep now.
That's true. Yeah. The other countries outside of the US who are also participating in the Gold Cup include Brazil, and Julia Bianchi was called up. Julia had an NWSL season last year where she just continuously improved her game, stayed near the top of the league table in assists all year. And I think she deserves another chance to fight for minutes on Brazil's squad. So that'll be cool to see. So a couple of the other players for Puerto Rico, the pride of Puerto Rico, Jill Aguilera, will join the squad for their playoff round leading into the Gold Cup, as they haven't really quite qualified for the tournament yet. But Jill has really made a name for herself in that squad and has been playing really well for them of late. So I'm really excited about seeing Jill there again, and she's their co-captain as well. So it's cool to see the armband on her as well. And then for El Salvador, Sam Fisher, who we didn't, you know, expect to be called into that team a couple months ago, and then and she did, and it's been announced the preliminary round rosters, the playoff rosters for that country as well. As of this recording, we've not seen the full team get called in. We just know the preliminary roster. But Sam hasn't been capped for the team yet, but it's close. I can feel it. Hopefully, it'll be in this playoff round for El Salvador. So
I will say, I am excited for all the Red Stars players, but my heart belongs to the US. So if we end up playing the US ends up playing all these other Red Stars players, I will silently be rooting against them. I'm just saying.
I always take it as I root for the US to win, but I hope that the players who I like on those other teams do well.
Just don't get hurt.
Yes, and don't get hurt. That's true. So, like one of the obvious name that we didn't go too in depth with when kind of talking about these players getting called in was Mal, and it's no secret that Mal is returning from an injury that kept her out for most of last year. She's been in training camp with the Red Stars since preseason began, and she made an appearance on Sam Mewis's new podcast, The Women's Game. And on that episode, Mal revealed a couple of different things. She mentioned that she was still thinking about what she would do if she got called up to the national team for the Gold Cup. Obviously, she chose the path of training with them and not playing with them in the actual matches, which is a smart move, I think, in her recovery. Just continuing her training with the Red Stars, continuing her training with the national team, and then, a month and a half later, she'll actually make an appearance at the beginning of the NWSL season. The second thing that she revealed was that her injury last year was much worse than the public had known about, and she didn't have to do this. Like first off, but she did detail her injury from the moment that it happened to the surgeries uh, to repair that tendon in her knee and all of her recovery afterwards. And within it, she shared that she actually became quite ill from an infection called septic knee. And she mentioned that her recovery became less about her playing soccer again and more about just being able to live her life again and not be sick. And I think that was a really hard episode to listen to because a lot of the times when these athletes are injured, we don't hear much from them during their injuries. And then afterwards, it's kind of hit or miss whether they're just like back playing and they're like, yeah, I tore my ACL, I tore this, and now I'm back. But players like Sam Mewis have been like very open about the struggles that they had in their recovery. And like I said, like Mal didn't have to do this. Mal didn't have to tell the public any of this about her injury, but it was nice to see her be so open about her recovery. And I think it can help a lot of athletes kind of see what's important in their lives at the moment because she talked about how like she was determined to be at the World Cup. She was just like, this injury is not as serious as I think it is, and I'll just be at the World Cup. And then to just tell the story about the severity of it, um, like changing her mindset of it not being about soccer anymore, but being about just her daily life, I think was really important to hear from an athlete like her that is inspired, or that so many people are inspired by, and she's so recognizable and a household name to a lot of people. And I think for her to go on a podcast and just say, you know, everything that you've been hearing is not necessarily the full extent of my story, and then to go ahead and reveal all of that to everybody, I think was very brave of her, and and hopefully it can help a lot of people kind of put a lot of things into perspective about the um what you should be focusing on when you have such a serious injury like that. It's not just about soccer, it's about your own life.
Yeah, I think it humanizes her for like a lot of people, including myself, think of her as kind of like a superhuman who is just so incredibly talented at soccer. And when you have an injury like she did, and when she went through all these things and she's, explaining it, it's really like kind of humbling at the same time as well. And she's really lucky to have all these great individuals by her side to help her get through this. And it's very brave of her to share all this stuff too, because like you said, she didn't have to do all that. So to have athletes who have had just horrible injuries like go out and be like, this is stuff that can happen, but also like at the same time like try and help you go through that stuff. I've known several people in the soccer world that have torn their ACLs or have torn their ACLs in other sports, and I know how horrible recovery can be, and having to retire from those injuries. Um, I there was a coach at Nebraska. She played in the NWSL, and she retired because she tore her ACL like 3 times, and she coaches now, and she still gets to stay in the sport that she loves. Um, which I think it's just incredible for her to still have that opportunity. I am so glad that Mal is back and ready to go, and counting down the days until that very first game, whether she starts or comes off the bench for that.
Mhm.
Um, it's just going to be spectacular, full circle moment for her to be back on the pitch and scoring some stellar goals. But yeah, that clip was yeah, hard to listen to about the infection, and I know it can happen sometimes, but the fact that she got the best medical care possible for her to have this recovery,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I something that I was thinking about when she was telling this story was I know that after she got injured, um, Dansby, who plays for the Chicago Cubs, her husband he had taken like some days off. He came back. He wasn't playing well at all. And I know there were some people that were like very just like publicly being like athletes get injured, like this shouldn't be impacting his game, like whatever. And then to just like hear her tell that story about like having like septic anything not good, like life threatening.
Really, really bad.
Yeah. And so just like kind of now see that perspective of what like she was going through and then what Dansby was going through, like like being at the hospital with her, being there for the surgeries. You could tell why that affected his game so much. Like his wife was ill. His wife was really sick. And it wasn't just, you know, some injury that happens to anybody. Um, so I hope those people look back and just kind of look back at what they said and realize how ridiculous it is to um, criticize someone's game because they care about their wife, you know? Uh,
Yeah.
it was just weird. But I'm glad that it can now be kind of put into perspective with of how severe her injury was, um, and how that affected them as a whole.
Yeah. Sports is as much of a physical game as it is a mental game. And just that's all I want to say because I could go on a full on rant about that topic. But
Mhm.
yeah,
And like we love sports in general, not just soccer. We love sports. And at the end of the day, as much as we love it and as much as like time and effort and passion that we put into these things, and a lot of people do, it's a game. And when things like this happen, you gotta you gotta take a step back and realize uh where your mindset should be when it comes to the injury of a player or the way a player is performing and what could be happening in their life that is affecting those things. But as you said, I'm really looking forward to the moment that Mal steps back on that pitch, whether it's in that starting 11 for that first match or coming off the bench later in the game or at halftime or whatever. Just seeing her, back in those boots and wearing that crest and being out there killing it like she always does. I I I want to see it. I'm really happy that she seems happy and is healthy and going through her recovery at the pace that she needs, wants. And whenever she's back out there, it'll just be a wonderful moment for both Red Stars fans and just the soccer world in general, because she is, like you said, looked at as superhuman, it's really special to just watch a player like her play soccer. So it's unfortunate when situations like this happen, but when those players are back out on the pitch, it's just a different emotion. And I don't sorry that we're gonna wrap up on so that's it. That's all we got to talk about today. So sorry that we're gonna wrap up on such uh, a low yet happy note.
well,
With
I got good news.
I would
I
love to
can
hear your
share
good
good
news.
news. Okay. Um, I am the newest sports contributor for my school's newspaper. We can end on a good note.
Really? That's
Yeah.
awesome, Grant.
Thank you. Thank you.
What kind of are you doing all sports or
Yes, my first article is going to be about the end of the season for the swim team. They just had their
nice?
conference stuff. So gonna write about that. I've never wrote about swimming before, so this is gonna be interesting. Yeah, just another thing to add to my long list of things that I am currently doing in my life. But
That's awesome, Grant. Congratulations. That'll be
thank you,
really cool
thank
for
you.
your career. I know it. It's a good happy note. Thank you for that. I needed that. I was feeling very emotional with what we were doing. I was just like, oh man, I guess we really got to wrap
Yeah,
here. I made this rundown a little sad at the end, but I'm glad that you shared that news. That's awesome.
save your tears for when she scores her first goal. How about that?
Oh, that'll be a happy moment.
Happy tears instead of sad tears.
So yeah, we'll wrap up with that good news. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you find your podcasts. If you want to see us, if you want to see the backgrounds that we're always talking about, you can watch us on the Red Stars Report YouTube page. Subscribe to our show. Anywhere you listen, anywhere you watch, turn on notifications so you can see when our new episodes go up. Make sure you're following us at Red Stars Report on all of our social media channels to keep up with the news between episodes. Our Discord server, as always, keeps growing. It's such a great place to have all these conversations with the community members. You can figure out that Amber Brooks is on the club before I actually put it on social media if you're part of our Discord, because that's where those things kind of originate from most of the time. And as the season picks up, it'll be one of the best places to kind of interact with the community and get really excited about this club. But the next time that you see us, we'll still be full steam ahead, giving you updates on preseason training camp, any scrimmages that are going on. We still won't be at that first roster cut in late February yet, but we'll let you know how the roster is shaping up in those moments. But until then, enjoy the wonderful content that we've been getting from the club, and and that we're getting out of camp. And we'll see you next week for another Red Stars report.